Hi, my name is Richard Dix, and this is How Did That Happen? A podcast where I look at everyday things or events and try to figure out how they came to be. Every week I will research one topic, and by the end of the episode, I hope to truly have the answer to the question, how did that happen? Hello, and welcome to another episode of How Did That Happen? This week, I look at shoe size and find out there is more than meets the eye, or toe. Come along for the ride this week as I ask, shoe size, how did that happen? This all came about with an argument that I was having with someone when we were talking about shoe sizes, and I ignorantly spoke as if I knew about shoe sizes, and I'll tell you, as dumb as I sounded then, I'll tell you I'll sound just as dumb now, but I know more now. But I was saying that I just assumed that your shoe size was based off the inches of your foot. That's what I thought. That's what I honestly thought up until probably right before I started press recording. I'm not because I started doing the research on this about a week ago, but this conversation I had was probably about 2 months ago. And the person looked at me like I told him that I thought, aliens lived in our house or something like that. It was just weird. And then and I looked into it and I realized that not only was I wrong, I was just like, the world of shoe sizes is just, it's vast. It is vast, to say the least. So that's where this came from, and that maybe and I think we even decided in that conversation, it's like this could totally be an episode, because we're sitting here and we don't know how this works. So there's probably a percentage of people who are in the same boat as us. Yeah, we'll get right into it. I would say in the Roman Empire, feet were measured with barley corn, and one barley corn was said to be 1 inch. And the idea of an inch has changed over time. Most of these measurements being displayed by a human body part, which was inevitably, it varies in size. Meaning, back in the day, literally, you would measure things by your arms, like it's an arm's length, or like an inch. Like they said, it would be like the length of your knuckle across your knuckle. And if you look at everybody that has different size hands, everybody's inches are different. And so for a long time, people were trading and living and measuring with different. Nothing was standard. There was no standard. And this leads us to the composition of yards and perches, which was published somewhere between 1266 and 1303, and it kind of set the basis for measurement. It was a medieval statute that was not originally law, but became law over time. And with some of the things that they picked up were some of the stuff we already talked about, with like the measuring of the thumb knuckle and stuff like that. And they kind of put that, they amassed basically a set of laws and statutes that kind of standardized measurements in the medieval time. And this caused some issues amongst traders, and anybody trying to confirm a measurement, because the statute said that an inch was now 3 barley grains. And this was also an issue because the barley grain or barley corn can come in all different shapes and sizes. It's not one. So the thing they're using to standardize their measurement isn't even standard itself. So when you have these traders who are saying, my barley corn, this is 3 barley corns. I'm giving you 3 barley corns linked, but it's like it could be double the size of like your average barley corn, and so it's not the greatest system in the world, but it's progress. The length of a person's foot is commonly defined as the distance between 2 parallel lines that are perpendicular to the foot and in contact with the most prominent toe and the most prominent part of the heel. And of course, the left and right foot are a little different in length, and anybody who's actually tried shoes on before can attest to that. My left foot is a little bit bigger than my right, if anybody is wondering. And shoe sizes differ by all regions of the world. In 1324, King Edward of England signed a royal decree officially making barley corn a unit of measurement for shoe sizes. And like the English do, they just held on to that. This comes right after the publish of the composition of yards and perches. So it's like, this is really when, at that time, they're really making a push to standardize all of this stuff. And like I said, it really holds true for, as we see, about the next 1,000 years. I think it's odd that the whole barley corn thing hung around for so long. I mean, we changed up so many things in life and modernized and advanced. You still can trace the way that probably at least half the world measures their shoes to how people did it 2,000 years ago before like televisions and cars and cell phones existed. It's just you would think at some point you would switch it up. That blew my mind when you can really kind of trace it back. It's like, oh crap, because I never understood why. Because like I said, an example on YouTube, they said a 39 barley corn shoe size is the equivalent to a size 13, in the UK, and it's like I've seen those shoe sizes before, and I'm just like, what are they doing? Like why does well, I mean, everybody's different. I'm not saying you have to do all the same like America, but it just does not. It doesn't seem to make any sense. And when you look at it, it's like, oh, because you guys are doing this. You guys never really reevaluated this. But in addition to all that, Americans start counting their shoe sizes at 1 instead of 0, which is another reason why American shoe sizes are larger than the UK. And I was today years old when I learned that. I honestly thought growing up that Americans just had bigger feet. No one explains that to you. I mean, I guess because it's out there to be read, but even as a kid in college, I'd look shoes up and be like, oh man, we must just have huge feet over here. Like everywhere you look, they were just a little bit bigger. But then you realize it's just that they started at a different number. Like what? Okay. In Asia, shoe size is measured as average foot length and width, but measured in millimeters, which is another reason why their shoe sizes look so big. In some parts of Europe, like Spain, France, Germany, they use what is called Paris points, which sounds pretty cool. Paris points to size shoes, and a Paris point is the equivalent of 2/3 of a centimeter. The most prevalent system for measuring foot length is called the Mondo System, or the World System. Mondo just means world. This is measured in millimeters, and it is based on the average foot and width, is based on the average foot width and length, similar to what they use in Asia. This is commonly used for ski boots and military boots, and that explains why they always fit differently. If you've ever like gone from like, oh, well, I wear this size in sneakers, and you put on boots, and it's like it's not the same, But you eventually find the right fit. The FIA, the Footwear Industries of America, adds 1 to their scale when creating shoes for women because they just like to make stuff messy, and that is why in some places a 10 in men's is an 11 in women's, or vice versa, because the shoe game is just ridiculous. Tips for finding the perfect size, for anybody out there who's going shoe shopping today, it's probably impossible to do that. Not shoe shopping, but to find that perfect size, due to all the sizing differences. But a tip is to walk around a little bit before trying on your shoes. This is because your feet expand and change throughout the day. So you get up in the morning and you're like, I'm gonna go shoe shopping at 9 a.m. right? And then later on that day or the next day, maybe you buy your shoes in that morning, and the next afternoon you put them on. You're like, these don't even fit right. It's like, oh, it's because you've been walking around all day, and your feet are now a little bit of a different size. So you would want to probably at least give yourself, I don't know, quarter mile, half mile, maybe, and to get some blood going, let them feet flatten out, and then go try shoes on then, and you get the perfect fit. You got it right here on HDTH. All right, let's see. Half sizes were introduced in America in 1887 and adopted by British manufacturers shortly after that. Before that, I thought this was funny. I forget where I read this, but it was just the way you treat people, man. But before that, manufacturers thought it would be a waste of time to make half sizes because people were just used to having either shoes that were a little too small or a little too big. It's like, why would we make it any better? They're used to it sucking, like, the first real shoe sizing tool we see emerge from the 20th century comes in the form of the Ritz stick, which was developed by Oliver Ritz Roller in 1914. The Ritz Roller, it's actually Ritz Waller, but it sounds cool when you can say Ritz Roller. It's hard to find information about this guy, but when I did find it, it came in droves. He did this with grant money from the U.S. Army because they wanted a way to standardize their shoes. He and his brother owned a shoe store in Jacksonville, Florida, in the early part of the 20th century, but his mind was always on inventing things. He was active in the innovation of automobiles as well. He was one of those guys that was always tinkering with things, and he created some early windshield wipers as well as rearview mirrors for trucks. And his Ritz stick is still in use today. Which I honestly did not know what it was until today myself. But you can buy one on Amazon right now, and some people swear by them from the articles that I've read because they are an inexpensive way to know your shoe size, your exact shoe size, which is important when everyone's shopping online these days. So that's what the article I read is like. You can get one on Amazon for like $20, maybe $25, and you can know like beyond a shadow of a doubt when you're putting in your shoe size, you're like, oh, this fits. Not me where I'm just like, it's a 12. I hope it's 12 in Europe. I hope it's 12 in Asia. Whatever. And like, no, like measure your foot, dude. But yeah, the shoe sizing machine that we're all familiar with right now, that I would be willing to bet that everyone, well, not everyone, but if you're in America and you were raised sometime in the last century almost, we've all had our foot measured with this device sometime or another, and it is the Charles Brannock, the Brannock device. Not a great name. The guy just went with my last name and device, but he did this in 1925. His father owned a shoe store. He was improving on the Ritz stick, so it should be said, because the Ritz stick had been around for 10 years before that. So this guy's not like a super like genius innovator as much as he can punch some stuff up. But he noticed that the foot measurers at the time, they were only measuring by length and width, or they were only measuring by length and not width. And his device did both at the same time. And the military loved Brannock's device because before that they had a bunch of men wearing the wrong size shoes. And so this is because while the Ritz stick was used for the army, it takes time for things to go mainstream, and like I said, Brannock's device was better, so they were viewing it the same way with the half sizes as like, well, these guys will just be fine with a one size up shoe or one size down shoe, and then they realize, that they're not, and then you get the Ritz stick and it gets a little bit better, and then we get the Brannock device, which is like, it's like, now we can make shoes. By World War II, the Brannock device was used by most of the armed forces, and despite the shoe store going out of business, because like I said, it was the father and son, they owned a shoe store. Evidently, it was not a great shoe store because it went out of business in 1981, but the Brannock shoe measuring device is still available now and is used all over the world. And it's like, you always know there's history to that stuff. You can go in a JCPenney's right now, if you can still find a JCPenney's, and you can sit down in there and there'll be a Brannock device sitting right at your feet. And like, you would never, I don't know. No, I've never, I never thought where it came from. That's pretty much it for shoe sizes, because the rest of it it's then you're breaking it down. Then it's like shoe sizes are like this, or and they measure doing in this part of the country. Like, that's true. My real question, which was the impetus behind this, was why or how? You know what I mean? Why is it that we all have not the same size feet, but we all have feet that basically shape the same way, but we're all just like, nah, I'm measuring them this way, nah, I'm measuring them that way. That's pretty wild when you think about it, in the sense like we're all humans who have feet who generally look the same, but all over the world we measure them differently. I mean, is that because of the size? Is it because of the way we think? Who knows? I don't know. That was kind of my question, and that is how shoe size happened. And now it's time for the roundup. And we're going to round it up. Romans used barley corn as a system of measurement for their feet. England continued this into the medieval times by standardizing a version in the composition of yards and perches in the late 1200s. This continues on today in parts of the UK and Europe. There are other methods for measuring shoe size, such as Paris points or the Mondo system. And you can measure your feet with either a Ritz stick or the Brannock device. Things I didn't know before, and now I know them. Never heard of these things. What are they? We are here now for the segment things I didn't know before, and the one thing that I really didn't know, which really blew my mind the most, I would really say, is that shoe sizes in the UK are just, I can't let it go. They're based off of like the Roman times. Like, it's like, I know stuff in Europe is old, but it's like sometimes you got to change it up, man. That's just it. I didn't know that when I read that. I don't know. It was, it put some things, like I was able to understand some things, but I was still just like, so nobody in the last 2,000 years was just like, should we do a little different? I don't know. That was a big thing for me that I didn't know before. There's another one I hear that I didn't. I looked it up because I thought it'd be interesting. It's the biggest shoe sizes in the history of the NBA, because we're talking about shoe sizes. And one thing that I used to do as a not even as a kid, as an adult, I would go into like Ross, Dress for Less, into like where they sell the shoes. And at the far end, they have like those, like the 14s and the 15s. But I would just go in there and just pick them up sometimes and just look at them, and like I would just start laughing, because when you hold a shoe, when you hold like a size 21 in your hands, in both your hands, first off, you just I don't know, like my first inclination, like I just laughed, and I didn't know that, and it's kind of fun. So maybe the next time you're